Mr. Amos, how are you,
Mr.
sir?
Amos.
How you doing, Phil?
How are you?
How are you doing, man?
Great, that's Jimmy.
Yes.
Anthony, Opie.
How are you? Good to meet you.
John.
Don't worry about him.
My
in the
pleasure.
John
corner.
Amos.
How are you?
A man that hasn't aged. Holy crap.
No, it's a
I got a
legend.
hell of a painting in my basement, though.
Oh,
Is
my
that-
God.
yeah. There you go.
Picture of Dorian
A little
Gray.
Dorian Gray.
Are you a Nets fan or are you just wearing the hat?
Well, the truth of it is, as long as they're in Jersey, I'm a Nets fan. When they move to Brooklyn, I don't know how I'm going to feel, man.
Brooklyn Nets sounds kind of fun, though.
Yeah, that could be a good situation for them.
Yeah, you're from Jersey.
Born and raised in Jersey. Born
you
in
just-
Newark, raised in East Orange.
So you'll root for someone just because they're from Jersey? You're like a local guy regardless of the team?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
You
gotta
don't
do
have a problem
that.
with that, do you?
No, not at all.
So how do you feel?
That's why
How do you feel, Jets or Giants? What kind of...
Jets,
Yeah.
I think.
But Jets
Giants
are-
have so many injuries, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the
critical
Jets,
position.
are a Long Island team. It goes against your
Back
logic.
when they
Well,
played
they
at
both,
Shea.
they both play in
Yeah,
the
they play-
Meadowlands.
well, now
Jersey.
they do. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I don't know how they can call themselves New York teams. I mean, they practice in Jersey, they play in Jersey.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess they don't want the New Jersey kind of
What,
thing on their helmet.
stigma?
Yeah, Jersey. You know what? Over the years, Jersey has had this stigma of the big brother New York kind of being
Yeah.
right there next to them.
We live with it.
Yeah, I think it builds character.
Is that what it is?
You know, something like
Okay,
that.
something like
It's
that.
like getting our ass kicked every day on the way home to school. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like
Give me
getting,
that lunch money.
Exactly. You, holy geez, what a career you've had over the years.
I've been very fortunate.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely.
fortunate.
From early on in the 70s. I want to talk to you a little bit about Norman Lear and
Yeah.
working with him because we look at shows from that era, the early 70s, All in the Family, of course, Good Times, and look at it with this, knowing that Norman was a very liberal guy, but liberal for that time is a lot different than liberal now. And I think the political correctness that's around now, you could never get away with shows like that in this day and age.
I agree.
Yeah.
Norman had a conscience, and he was hell-bent on elevating people's concerns and knowledge about things like that are prevalent issues now, gang wars, like JJ getting shot, and the fact that some seniors had to eat dog food to survive or
Right.
pet food. Nobody would touch stuff like
And
that.
bigotry and racism through
Exactly.
Archie Bunker.
He was fearless.
And it was done. It was done in a way where it didn't have to be covered up in order to make an impact. He put it out there, and people were able to watch it and make up their own minds. I think in this day and age, especially with television, we're forced to be looked at as if we're stupid and can't think by a lot of these writers. Norman was a genius, being able to show us a bigot like Archie or a situation and let us interpret it ourselves, you know, instead of hiding it like I think
agree
they
with
do
you.
now.
Did you leave Good Times, though, because you didn't like the way it was being written? Like, was that one of the things where you felt it was going into a direction you didn't like?
That might have been one of the reasons I didn't feel the pain so much, but I was fired from the show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jesus.
No, a lot of people are under the misunderstanding or the false impression that I was that I quit the show. No, we were on hiatus, and I got a call from Norman's assistant. He said, John, Norman would like to speak to you. I said, okay. Norman gets on the phone. He says, hi, John. This is Norman. I said, yes. I recognize your voice after 2
Yeah, maybe.
years, right? And he says, well, I got some good news and some bad news. What do you want first? I say, hey, you made the call. He says, well, the good news is the show's been picked up for another 22 episodes, which was foregone conclusion. The show was in the top 10. I said, yeah. What's the bad news? He said, you won't be with us. I said, okay.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I didn't say anything. So he says, well, aren't you going to? I say, hey, Norman, you made the call. It's your show. Wish you all the best.
What was his reasoning?
Quote, John, you've become a disruptive factor.
Wow. Now, did he mean like as a character or as you?
as John Amos, because and again, people were under the false impression that I was jealous of JJ, and that that was what prompted me to quote unquote quit the show. No, it wasn't that. It was that they were. I thought the writers were taking a holiday, that they could have done a lot better job. And I wasn't the most tactful or diplomatic guy in those days. I had a frustrated football career, done some boxing, and to me, the best way to settle grievances, let's go outside. You know?
Yeah.
Or let's stay inside if you want to tear the furniture up. I didn't care. At the
And
time.
some tells me John would be a little intimidating if he asked
At
you to
that
step
time,
outside.
I'd like to think I've become a little bit more diplomatic these days. We didn't have a problem the other night when we
We had a very pleasant chat, actually.
I thought so. I thought so.
Jimmy.
I was happy we did, actually. I didn't want it to be unpleasant. Of
course
I
not.
made sure I steered it in a very pleasant direction.
So we cleared that up. Hopefully, once and for all, so nobody will ever ask me
Right.
again, why did you quit
Exactly,
Good
yeah,
Times?
But
yeah.
how many years did Good Times continue after you?
Too many.
Yeah, it stayed on the air for another, I think, 4 years or so.
Wow.
And then Miss Roll, God rest her soul, she quit at one time, and then they
Yeah.
convinced her to come back.
Wow.
It was one of those shows that really did overstay the welcome after a few years. You have that brilliant kind of first couple of seasons, and then they just kind of either, like you said, get lazy or run out of ideas or something, and then it just became, all right, are we going to hear Dynamite tonight?
At least once
All
every 20
right,
seconds.
we get it. Yeah.
You know, the
And
writers could take a holiday or put a chicken hat on JJ, and we don't have to write 3 or 4 pages.
Right,
you know?
right. He's just got to walk in the room and
That's it.
strut and
It's all about catchphrases.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and have a catchphrase.
It's
and
too bad.
It did get.
I watched an episode yesterday. I was on YouTube, and it was really funny. It was when Sweet Daddy wants to finance JJ's art career.
Oh, yeah.
And he walks in and he says, "You have a hostile attitude." And he says, "It's not an attitude. I'm hostile." That really made me laugh. What a dummy
John
Norman
did have
Lear
some
is.
great lines,
What a
man.
dummy to fire you. If you quit, that's one thing. But why would you fire a character that has so many funny lines?
I was threatening the writers' lives. That might have had something to do with
Yeah, I
it.
mean, I can understand that being disruptive, but did he at least say, "Look, if you again threaten to murder one of the writers, we're going to have to let you go"? Did he at least give you a warning?
Not really.
No?
Not really.
What were you looking for more in the writers? Not just being lazy, but
Okay, I
what
had
kind
2
of
other
topics
kids
did you
on the
want
show.
to?
Like, for example, my youngest boy, Michael, as portrayed by Ralph Carter, a wonderful young actor. In fact, he had been, I think he'd won an Emmy on Broadway for Raisin, the musical. And that's when Norman first saw him. And then Bernadette Stannis, a beautiful young lady who portrayed my daughter on the show. Their characters, respectively, wanted to be a surgeon. I believe that's what Thelma's aspiration was. And Michael is played by Ralph Carter. He aspired to become a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
And I thought there's a great deal of humor that can be gotten out of those 2 situations. But again, the writers chose to make JJ's walk and, the catchphrase and chicken hats the crux of the show. And,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be an
boy.
elitist, but I said, I think we can do a little bit better than that. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I wasn't the most diplomatic guy.
How's your relationship with JJ?
Most importantly, my relationship with Norman is very, very good now.
Oh, good.
I guess as time went by, in fact, I did 2 more pilots for Norman after I was told by just about everybody involved with the show, "You'll never work again."
Yeah.
Until we need you. And
Right.
then, of course, Norman and I patched up our differences. And in fact, I was in Vegas a couple of years ago to help him celebrate his birthday and the fact that he was being recognized by the television guild,
You know what?
for
An
his
odd
accomplishments.
thing I read recently was the fact that you weren't really much older than Jimmy Walker.
9 years
at
or
the
so?
time.
Well, yeah, this is true.
It was an
I
odd
didn't wanna be
situation.
it was an odd. Well, I've always played character parts. I've always loved older parts. In fact, the first time I was ever on Broadway, which is got to be 150 years ago, I was portraying a guy in his 60s. So I've always liked character roles. I think they're a lot more challenging, a lot richer.
Did you think that too? Did it have anything to do with the way white writers write for black characters? Did you think that was limited, or that they were kind of doing what they saw from the outside instead of getting like black writers to help?
Well, that was one of the primary issues that because you're a writer on a show does not necessarily mean that you have the knowledge of developing those characters. I know the first writing job I got was with the Leslie Uggam show back in the late 60s. And in fact, that would have made me network television's first African-American writer or black writer on staff. So, and I got that gig because I was working on a Loman and Barkley show, a local radio show. And the thing that's significant about that is myself, Craig T. Nelson, Barry Levinson, Rudy DeLuca, we all started together, making $100 a week.
Barry Levinson was an actor?
No, he was he was an actor.
If they hire you here at Sirius, you can make $100 a week again. Believe me.
No kidding.
It pays like shit.
In regards to your question, Jim, that was an issue because they wanted to write not just about a black family, but a black family that lived in the projects, at Cabrini Green projects in Chicago. And that is a very unique social situation. I honestly believe, unless you've been in a situation, at least confer or defer, or both, to those people that have lived there, or that know exactly how they would conduct themselves in a situation. You can always put the humorous spin on it, but don't just by virtue of the fact that you have television credits or you've been a writer in the Guild or whatever. They felt qualified them to just make us just do the lines. I said, no, it can't roll like that.
Because they're it feels like there's a weird balance between showing something accurately, and look, sometimes stereotypes are true, but then there's cartooning something where you see something and you're doing is going off the stereotype, and you're not realizing that there's other humor that would happen in that house that's not just JJ yelling something dynamite or whatever it is.
Right, but at the same time, we realized we were doing a sitcom.
Right.
And the primary purpose is to entertain people, make them laugh. So it got kind of it was tension filled at times.
Jeez.
A great deal of the time.
I can imagine. But I saw a couple of the characters, your character especially, James Evans, was a strong leader, father character in that show.
Oh, no doubt. But the only reason I got the job was because of Miss Roll, Esther Roll. When the show was offered to her, they wanted it to be a perpetuation of what was stereotypical on television. Everything was a matriarch.
Yeah.
And she said, "No, I want a husband on this show.
Can I have a husband, please?
So I auditioned, and the chemistry was solid the first time we met each other, and I missed her. I missed the union that we had on that show.
Yeah.
It was a great balance.
I do a one-word Esterol impression.
Please.
Oh, boy.
James!
Very good.
Thank you.
Leave your 8x10 by the door. We'll call you. Thank you very much.
Hey, come on. If there's one thing I always wanted to do, it was my Esterol James impression.
Okay.
In front of John Amos.
It would be so great if you just got up and broke your jaw.
It's not too late.
I do have a good time story myself there. When I was growing up, John, I stole a Playboy.
Now, of course.
I did, though. Remember when Thelma was in Playboy?
No. You sure you got the right? She did do us.
Oh,
I think there was
Playboy?
some kind of.
And I saw that Playboy. I'm assuming it was Playboy.
I'm not
goes
sure.
way back.
I'm looking now at comments to see if you're an idiot.
No.
He's probably right.
On the air, I said
know.
Florida, and I made the big snafu there. But it was Thelma.
Oh, you said Florida was in Playboy?
Yeah.
No, Mike. Oh, yeah, that was a mistake.
Yeah, it was a mistake. I was trying to say
She was not in
Thelma.
Playboy.
No, I don't think
I will
so.
bet a lot of money that Thelma. I saw
Probably
Thelma
not.
nude, and I had to steal that magazine when I was a kid.
Yeah, she was a sex
And
symbol.
then I
growing
hid
up.
it in the woods.
She was a sex symbol.
Where else would you hide that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I want to move on a little bit to Roots. Obviously, probably a highlight of your career there.
No doubt.
Emmy nomination. What was that like on set? Because that was really the first time the story was confronted, and it was acted out between people in a realistic manner, between whites and blacks in front of a camera, but having to say horrific things to each other. You really didn't see that at the time. Was it uncomfortable between the actors?
No, on the contrary, but everybody was working towards something that we all knew was bigger than us, the story. And again, I go back. So I started in the business as a writer, so I've always had tremendous respect for writers because they're the magic workers to me. They sit in a room alone, as a rule, with blank paper and turn it into something magical that if they're really about their business and really about their craft, that years from now, maybe even centuries from now, in the case of great writers, people can look at those symbols on paper and recapture those moments, relive those moments, and reanimate those moments.
Right.
So to me, it all starts with writing. This present project I'm in now, Felony Friday, which is an incredible piece of writing for my money. And I've had the pleasure of working with some of the best people in the industry. You mentioned Norman Lear when we did the Mary Tyler Moore show. Of course, it was Grant Tinker and James Brooks, who obviously went on, to tremendous success.
Sure.
Not just with The Simpsons, but with
Taxi.
Taxi and the Jack Nicholson film. In which Jack won the Academy Award.
In Terms of Endearment or Cuckoo's Nest? Or
no, not Cuckoo's Nest.
Cuckoo's Terms of Endearment and As Good as It Gets, I think.
I forget which one it was. I'm not going to. But the bottom line is it all starts with the writing. Mm-hmm. And this young man, Scott Decker, who's written Felony Friday, wow. I when I first got the script, I was in California. And they emailed it to me, and I said, "Who is this guy?" And I had never heard of him. I said, "What has he been taking?" Because the writing is off the chain.
It must be really nice. You've been in the business for many years. When you get a script that knocks on your ass, you gotta appreciate that, especially being a writer.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was pretty much satisfied with the idea of retirement. I like to fish. Wow. I've been living in Mexico the last 10 years, and the fishing there is great. The weather's great. It rains one day a year. I said, retirement's not too bad. I can still come out and do my one-man show once in a while, but in terms of pursuing, aggressively pursuing acting jobs, I said, no. I much prefer to write and fish. Mm-hmm. But when I read this, I said, I know it doesn't pay anything. This is the Fringe series. But I needed to test my chops to see if I could still, muster up the energy required to do rehearsals, to commute into the city, to do rehearsals, to work with an ensemble. And when we started working together, once the actors and the rest of the cast had an advantage over me because I drove across country to get get to the city, and that took several days. And of course, they were rehearsing. So when I got there, I was behind in regards to rehearsals. But they were so supportive, and we got a tremendous cast. I just want to plug a couple of my fellow actors. In addition to Scotty Decker, who wrote and stars in the piece. I don't really think in terms of any of us starring because it's a true ensemble. We feed off each other. We help each other. These guys carried me, and particularly the lead actor. The character is focused around a fictional crime boss. Joe Whistler is the actor. He's incredible. Everybody in the company is incredible. And again, this is without any, big, humongous compensation. Well, maybe they'll give you maybe they'll let you buy a papaya dog at a discount or a Big Mac, but that's about it.
But this is for satisfaction,
for the satisfaction
on your
as
part,
an actor.
Just having seen such a good script,
right?
Working with such a great cast. You play a convict.
I play. Well, he hasn't been convicted yet, but he's certainly been arrested. His name is BBI, which stands for Big, Black, and Invisible. And you have to see the play to really see it. Well, how does that work out?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to go to see the play, but you're going to be invisible? No. It's a wonderful play. This character, Joe Whistler, portrays a fictitious crime boss who has taken it on to himself to locate, identify, and murder rapists and those who prey on women. So he takes them to his father's basement. But the moral, if there is, of this play is that we are all held accountable for our actions. Mm-hmm. My character, BBI, has killed his wife's lover. He got off work early one day, came home, and found them together in a compromising position, shall we say.
Of course, yeah.
Running through the whole Kama Sutra, and he takes the guy out with his bare hands and beats him to death. Damn near caved his head in, as I recall the dialogue. And so he's haunted by that and all of these characters in this holding tank, and that's where it takes place. Now, what's significant about the fact that it takes place in a holding tank, I don't know if I got to share this with you the other night, Jim, when we were talking outside the Cafe Walk. I used to work at Center Street at the Brooklyn House and at the Brooklyn House of Detention and in the Tombs, not as a correction officer, but as a social worker.
Oh, wow.
I started my career at the Cafe Walk, okay?
Yeah.
I'd work as a social worker in the institutions during the day, and then to get rid of the stink of the prisons, the mental stink and the physical stink, I'd go down to the village and watch comedians. And one night I couldn't stand it anymore. I mean, I saw some guys go up. I said, I know I can do better than that. And so I asked the manager of the then manager of the cafe why. I said, can I go up? He said, what do? You sing? I said, no, I'm a comedian. He said, oh, yeah, what's your name? I said, John Amos. He said, I never heard of you. I said, well, I have another job during the day, but can I go up? He said, yeah, you got 5 minutes. You go on about 20 minutes. So I went up. I did 5 minutes. I died. That's when I developed a love for what it is you do so well. Comedians. You walk into a room, complete strangers. Some have hemorrhoids. Their car's been repossessed. Whatever. You got to make these people laugh. To me, they're the most courageous, inventive minds in the industry because you can take any issue. If you're as sharp as you are, and so many of the other comedians that I really admire, and make people laugh. And that was a great training ground at that time. Richard Pryor was working up the street. Robert Klein, the late Godfrey Cambridge, Bill Cosby. They were all just getting started. And it was a fascinating time to be coming up in the business.
And to not know that they were going to go where they went.
Right.
But just to see that brilliance at that time must have just been amazing. And looking back in retrospect, it's gotta be
I mean, you could go to any club and learn from the best, the guys who were on their way to being the best. And I grew up with television, my generation, but I had masters on television, Show of Shows, and that entire company, Milton Berle, we're the men from Texaco. We work from Maine to Mexico.
Yeah, it's the Texaco Star Theater.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to see them, and then to watch Amos and Andy, which got booted off the air because of some very conservative elements. But my name being John Amos, I was pissed off about it.
Oh, wow. Hell yeah. I didn't even think that probably was like, hey.
But it was no different from Sergeant Bilko. I mean, Andy was the foil, and Doberman was Bilko's foil. So you don't even know what we're talking about.
No, I know the show. I don't remember it. I'm in my late 20s.
You look horrible.
Teenage years were rough, huh?
They really were bad.
There are certain shows from a while back that they still follow the same formula these days. You have your foil. Your other guy, the two guys that play off each other, the wacky neighbor is still a staple of the sitcom. And you look back at things like The Honeymooners and see that was what was happening at the time. And it's just a credit to those early shows that, wow, this is still working. And still pertinent,
Exactly.
When you did stand-up, did you continue doing stand-up, or did you do it a few times and stop, or did you always continue doing it? I
always continued doing it. It was just a degree of regularity. Even to this day, I'll be out in L.A. visiting my son, who is hi KC, if you hear this. He's a very well-respected director. Anyway, cut to the chase. When I'm out there visiting him or any family member just out, in L.A., every once in a while I'll feel the need to go to the Comedy Store, get up on stage, and do 15 or 20 minutes. Whatever, and it's cheaper than the therapist.
Yeah, it's good, though, right?
It's
get
good,
up there,
man. It's good.
Speak your piece. Yeah.
There it is.
But I'm always afraid of, a lot of actors will say that comedy is hard, but for me, acting is much more difficult and impressive. Yeah, I really.
I love Jeremy.
But he's right. I stink. Patrice O'Neill told me I have silent film eyes when I act, which is right. I really am fucking terrible.
Oh fuck!
I really am awful. You know my mood by the reaction of other people in the room. It's like I can't convey anger. It's like so to me, it's hard because if you're falling apart in a scene, as a comedian, I can address it as a stand-up. I can go wherever I want. I can just say this stinks, I'm terrible, or whatever, and bail myself out. But when you're bombing in a scene, you're trapped. And to me, that's the scariest thing on earth.
That's funny you say that because I've always regarded comedians as the bravest, the most inventive people in the industry. And as an actor, when if I get a character like I've got with this piece, Felony Friday, I can climb inside of that. And after a while, you start feeling that you can give the director, in this case, our director, and especially Scott, who created the piece, exactly what they want to see happen. I mean, I give it to them exactly, but we start working towards that. Now, we've got an abbreviated schedule in terms of the number of performances, and all the actors feel like we're just beginning to find our way. Initially, we started doing this piece painting with rollers, I call it. And now we're starting to get down to the 2-inch brushes and
detail work. Yeah,
just about the time we get ready to do the detail work, the run's over.
Right.
But I have a very strong feeling that with Scotty Decker's talent and the buzz that's out on this piece, Felony Friday, that it may have an afterlife. If so, I hope I'm available to commit to it.
I was so annoyed I couldn't go because you invited me to go. I was shooting something and we didn't finish
Hopefully yourself.
and way to hurt a guy's feelings.
In this room, man.
None whatsoever.
I
It's
just
terrible.
try to be good. It's all I want is to be good.
Right?
No, it was an hour after the play had started when we actually, by the time we finished.
I got you.
And there is it's right by the Comedy Cellar. If you guys know where Cafe Wa and the Comedy Cellar, it's sandwiched between them, and it's where Teller did his play.
The Players Theater.
Players Theater. It's right. It's a great little upstairs. No, it's actually not upstairs. It's on the ground level, and it's called Felony Friday, and it's 212-475-1449, and there's 2 shows left. There is one tonight at 8 o'clock.
7:30.
7:30, and there's a Thursday show.
Thursday show at 9:30, which
Okay.
is pretty late. But then again, we hope to have a good crowd for the closing show. We had a full house the first night we moved into the Players Theater, and the audience response was incredible.
I've started to enjoy. I never liked plays, never went to them, and I've gone to a few like in the last couple of years. I started to love going because it seems so much harder than film acting, which is hard enough. But when you're on stage, it's like you have to, I'm telling him, but you have to emote. It's hard enough to do it as a camera.
Why don't you tell John how to act?
It helps. Like when you're on stage, you got to get laughs. I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, let's.
No, but it's good that I'm helping you, John. Remember, picture the naked. That really helps. He should just knock my teeth out. I'm an idiot.
And is this a single set?
It's a single set.
Okay, so it's the cell, the holding cell.
The holding cell. And
I always found that an interesting thing because Reservoir Dogs was originally that. When it was a play, it was written as a play, it was a single set play.
All in that.
There's a mix
all in the
of,
warehouse theater.
He is very, very skillfully blended a mix of film, which opens this play.
Mm-hmm.
There is a film clip which introduces you to Paul Giacomotti, this fictitious crime boss played by Joe Whistler, and how he gets busted and how he gets to the cell, or the holding tank. And once he's there, then the play opens up and we go to the stage. But we try to put that audience in that holding cell. And having worked, like I said, at the Tombs and the Brooklyn House of D, I know what the behavior can be like in a holding cell.
So these are now people that do not know each other and are first introduced to each other and kind of...
Actually, no, most of us don't know each other, but we find out later that Paul Giacomotti knows one of his fellow inmates, or would you say, or cell members, because this particular character that he knows is gay. I mean, blatantly, he's a practicing homosexual male prostitute.
By the way, if you knew how amazing it was that you said that and he walked in the room, I know you didn't plan it.
Sam walked in.
that was a Laverne and Shirley.
Hello.
Someone called.
Yeah, and you couldn't see, but he actually backed in. I'm so happy that just happened. Jesus. Oh, is that perfect?
I'm going to leave that alone, man.
So one of the characters is gay. I'm sorry.
One of the characters is gay. Another is absolutely insane. He's probably fried his brain with every drug known to man, and he looks amazingly like Tom Hanks in Castaway. So we all refer to him as Tom Hanks in any one of Tom Hanks's movies. So I don't want to give the whole play away, but suffice it to say, this is a mix of characters who interact, and then they are visited by Jack. And Jack is the reincarnated form of a dirty cop who Paul Giacomotti whacked in his basement. So he's sitting there in the holding cell, and in walks Jack in a new body and begins to make him account for the number of people that he murdered in his father's basement.
It's like a damn interesting show, man.
It is. Trust me. And the dialogue, again, for me, it all starts with the writing. That's why I get excited. When I read it, I said, I got to do this. I want to be part of this ensemble. Not in hopes that it would go on to get me a job, because if they did the John Amos story, they'd probably want to get Samuel L. Jackson anyway. No, I'm serious. There used to be a billboard that hung. You'd appreciate this. A billboard that hung over the Strip in L.A. across from the Comedy Store. In fact, that said Hollywood, the place where if they were doing the story of your life, you wouldn't be right for the part.
You're not right for it.
So I want to hurry up and get the John Amos story done before Samuel L. Jackson gets a job. Right?
Florida motherfucker.
I don't care if you all go to hell. You know? Sammy, let
man.
somebody else work. Please, Sam, if you're listening. I mean, I got a granddaughter in medical school. You don't need to make all the movies all the time.
You do. I mean, come on, Coming to America. Fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
you were
it was
a good
great.
movie.
Well, you were great in that movie.
Thank
the
you.
McDonald's ripoff
Before I
place.
break my leg off in your royal ass. What a great
Hilarious.
line.
Just hilarious.
Now,
Yeah.
I was proud of that line because the one they had originally written for me when I come back at King Jaffe Joffer, played by the great James Earl.
James Earl Jones.
The line was, "Hey King, you talk to my daughter like that again, I'm gonna drop you like a bad habit." And I said, I think we can. I'm from Jersey. We can come a little bit stronger than that. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So without telling anybody, I ad-libbed that line at the table when we had a read-through, and Eddie put the seal of approval on it because Eddie was the litmus test. As soon as I said, "Hey King, you talk to my daughter like that again, I'll break my foot off in your royal ass," Eddie said, he laughs like a mule on steroids, you know. I said, yeah. So John Landis says, "Oh, that just might work." Yeah, I said, I think so.
There's nothing worse than when you're reading something and a line, and that was a very well-written film. But when
It
you
was.
look at a line and you're like, it's weak. There's nothing worse than a weak joke line, like a saw, and some fucking, normally it's some fruity writer that has no real
Just
life experience and
doesn't
just thinks,
have any, yeah.
that's really dangerous. And it's not. There's nothing more uncomfortable than that.
I'm telling you.
You've had comedy roles and very dramatic roles too, which a lot of actors they can't really ride that line. But
Well, they find out when they try comedy that there's a lot more to it than just, hey, a funny thing happened. No, you know.
right. Do you find it more difficult in movies to be funny than it is to be dramatic?
I like, more difficult because you can't get the feedback. You don't know the crew. If they're a disciplined crew, as a rule, they can do. They can let you know it ain't working. But when it is working, and I've had the experience of being around crews that were disciplined enough to hold their laughter until the director said cut, then they'd fall off the boom, if he was a boom man. And that, to me, is the ultimate compliment. When you can get a crew to laugh, and you see guys trying to stifle it, and they've heard it all. They've
That's
seen
great.
it all,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, there is
I'm
nothing
waiting for that moment.
when the cameraman laughs. When you see the cameraman laughing at something that's off, you're like, "That's fucking funny."
Yeah, because he is not supposed to do
These
that.
guys
Exactly.
can film beheadings without being said. Nothing matters to them.
Bothers them.
They're unflappable most times.
Yeah.
When you break the crew, you feel like, oh, okay,
That's it.
I did
That's
something.
it, man.
And that's what happens. A couple of great actors start talking about things.
Men of similar ilk.
Hey,
Similar
guys
ilk.
relating
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a relationship with Pryor at all?
Richie, I only to the degree that Richie and I did. I did work with him several times. He still is, for my money, a comedic genius. My business manager, Richard Cook, this guy's very stoic. I mean, he hardly ever emotes. He sent me an excerpt from one of Richard's shows just last week, and in this one, Richard Pryor is portraying the President of the United States at a press conference, and I didn't realize until I saw this, and I'd seen all his films, I'd seen him on stage, and I'd followed him on stage. Richard was a fine actor, man.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, and even to this day, you look at that piece where he's playing the president. Initially, you see he's working very small, and he's got all the presidential nuances, the hiked eyebrow, and then he slides slowly into Richard Pryor when one of the guys says something about, look, if your mother doesn't, whoa, wait a minute, you said something about my mama. Richard was a genius, man.
Do you ever see, he was great in Grease Lightning and
Right.
Lady Sings the Blues and fucking Blue Collar.
Yeah.
Oh, did I annoy Diana Ross? I met her on a plane and I was trying to ask her if Pryor was, because I'd heard he was difficult to work with. I'm a Pryor freak. And I'm like, I want to know.
You could say you annoyed Diana Ross and just stop with "I went up to her."
Yeah, I did.
That's pretty much.
She was on the plane in front of me, so I wanted to ask her what was he like to work with, because again, I've heard things and I love Pryor. And I'm like, because I heard Cicely Tyson said that in Bustin' Loose he was kind of hard to be around. And she's like, well, Cicely Tyson wasn't in Lady Sings the Blues. And I'm like, no, I know. And she's like, I said Bustin' Loose. And she goes, oh. And she ignored me.
She just wanted to ignore
I
you.
had really annoyed Diana Ross just trying to fish for prior information.
There should have been an air marshal on there to tackle you.
No, the guy who was sitting next to her the whole flight, who had bonded with her. I just cut in between them and I followed her off the plane and asked for a photo, and she said
you
no.
You're a
creep.
stalker.
I-
Oh,
I'm only
you have
a-
no idea, John.
I'm only a 5-minute
yeah.
stalker. Like I walk away.
okay.
I
As
don't
soon as he gets
stalk-
his picture, he's done.
Yeah.
That's the most important part of Jim's life. Yes,
You
celebrity
don't
photography.
like taking photos. You're like one of the most recognizable guys. When you were sitting outside the cellar, every person that walked by knew who you were. And the only
That's
other
the power of the tube, man.
the only other reaction I've ever seen that from is Sherman Hemsley, who I know. He came to the Comedy Cellar one night, and every homeless guys were yelling out to him, but like everybody knows that guy.
And it is, like you said, the power of the tube, man.
It's the power of the tube. You're in people's homes, generation after generation. In my
this
case,
day.
and
Yeah.
by way of example, I was doing a movie with Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So we had a camera break where I think we were shooting on the MGM lot, and I'm standing on the corner of one of the sets, and I'm standing there with Sidney. We just finished our lunch, and some tourists came by in a bus, and they looked at Sidney, but they came over and took pictures and asked me for autographs. And I said, and we're standing right next to each other. So when they left, I said, Sidney, what was that, man? His explanation was, you're in their homes. When they see me, I'm 35 feet by 17 feet. And I'm,
true.
John, I'm a movie
Wow.
star. So I always appear to be inaccessible. But they feel like they can come up, hey, give me a shoe shine. You got
What a nice backhanded compliment that is. I'm a movie star. So you're on TV.
No, but
I was Mr. Tibbs, motherfucker.
You think Sidney was annoyed? He started dropping little things. He kept talking about the Oscar and the Oscar.
No, he's cool, man.
I know. I met him in a pharmacy. Oh, and I bug him.
Yeah.
I met him
this
in a
guy.
pharmacy.
You stalk Sidney, too?
No, I was
me
getting.
up, Jimmy.
Honestly, I was getting Cialis. I was in a pharmacy in Beverly
Ever had a
Hills.
Viagra?
I don't take Viagra; it gives me a bad headache. But Cialis stays in the system for 3 days, and I was like, "Oh, that's what a man should feel like." And I was going to be in LA,
Took off your sundress and took
so I saw Sidney Poitier, and I'm just standing there, and Sidney Poitier walks by me. So of course I talked to him because he directed Stir Crazy. So I started asking him about Pryor, and he was actually very sweet, and we talked for a few minutes, and then I got a photo.
He was cool.
Yeah, but nobody else asked him. Beverly Hills, they all try to pretend they don't care.
Oh,
but
yeah, like they don't see you. Or well,
it's Sidney Poitier. There's nobody that wasn't psyched. There's not an actor.
Royalty.
okay.
There's not an actor in the world that wouldn't
Hollywood
stop and talk to
royalty.
him. Who am I
Yeah.
to not speak to him and ask
Absolutely.
for a photo?
You're right.
Why'd you stop boxing?
Because I got beat up.
Oh, okay. It's the same reason I should quit acting.
No, man. After my last fight, the Fulmer brothers had a young fighter. They brought him from Utah, and I fought in the Colorado Golden Gloves finals, named Johnny Bullocks. To this day, Johnny and I talk every 3 or 4 years or so if we can get a hold of each other. To this day, he contends that he won the fight. He did. He won the decision, split decision. But what convinced me to stop fighting was for several days, I couldn't open my mouth too wide.
Oof.
And then when about the second day after the fight, somebody said, "Excuse me, what is your name, sir?" And I said, "Oh,
Wow.
I had to think for a minute.
That's a hell of a punch.
And I said, "Oh no, I could see what was coming."
Right.
And then I looked at some of the other guys that had made careers out of boxing. I said, "I'm not that good. I tried professional football." And once I got over the initial thing of venting the hostility and beating some guy up, or waiting a month for the swelling to go down if he beat me up, I said, I don't want to do this for a living. There's got to be another way, man.
Were you not good enough to play? You were good enough to play college ball or whatever, but just you couldn't make that transition to the
No,
pros.
the
It was
transition and I had every opportunity. Hank Stram, God rest his soul, when I was with Kansas City, under contract to the Chiefs twice, he told me, he said, John, you are not a football player. You are a young man who happens to be trying to play football right now. So before he released me the second time, and this is when my life took a turn, I said, Coach, I know you got to cut me. You got to get down the roster, but I've written a poem about the Turk, that mythical figure that cuts players, Hey, Norton, Coach wants to see you, and bring your playbook. Then it's all over.
Right.
It's like, nice, son, just leave your 8x10 by the door in our business. So I read this poem, And he had gathered all the players together because they were having a blackboard session, a skull session. And after I read the Turk, these guys gave me a standing ovation. A lot of them would go on to the Hall of Fame. A lot of them would get cut. But they all knew who the Turk was because they all feared him. And that's the shadow, that sword of Damocles that hangs over the head of every professional athlete. You don't know when it's going to come. I mean, you can have a career to put you in the Hall of Fame, but sooner or later, you're going to get cut or be asked, would you mind retiring, please? You know? And so that gave me the encouragement to, hey, I said, I can write. I can write stuff that, you know, and once you get that confidence going, and so Hank Stram cut me from football, but he kind of pushed me towards what it was I've been doing for the last, you know, decades, plural.
That must take a lot of balls, though, for a guy to walk up to somebody that he probably knew you were very passionate about it and say, look, hey, you're just not a football player. You know,
right.
That's a ballsy move.
We had the biggest team in football in Kansas City at the time. I had guys in front of me like Mike Garrett had won the Heisman Trophy. I signed as a free agent. I had to pay my own way to camp. I drove to camp. I towed my motorcycle to camp. I had bought a bike, and I towed it to camp. So not only did I get cut from the team, I come out the day I get cut, and somebody stolen my motorcycle.
Oh, shit.
No, this is true, Jimmy. Honestly, but we trained at that time in Liberty, Missouri, a very small town. So I went down to the street corner, the main drag in town, wearing my Chiefs T-shirt. And the first kid that came by on a bike, I said, hey, you want to make $500? I didn't have it. I said, I'll give you a reward. You help me locate my motorcycle. He said, what kind of bike was it? I told him it was a purple matchless. He said, ah. And I said, oh, yeah, I got it.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
So I listened to him peel out. He never gets out of second gear. And I said, my bike is close by. So he comes back and he says, I think I know where your bike is. I said, me too. Fuck you. You ain't getting a dime. So I went to the kid's house. Sure enough, there's my bike dismantled. And the kid's not home, but his father says, I wondered where he got this bike from. This belonged to you? I said, yeah. He said, what do you intend to do? I said, I intend to have your son put it back together and take my... He said, you don't want to file no charges? I said, no. In fact, as I think about it, he can buy it. So I sold him to the kid the bike, never pressed charges. The only thing that got me really pissed off was I had no money. I couldn't go back to training camp. So I had to sleep in the jail for 3 days while they processed and the kid everything and put the bike back.
They allowed you to sleep in the jail?
Yeah, they said, well, you're welcome to stay here with us, son. I said, yeah, okay. So I
Mayberry.
Yeah. I slept in the jail for 3 days in Liberty, Missouri.
I spent one night in jail, and in the Tombs, actually. It was a radio stunt with these guys, for these guys, not with these guys.
Went awry.
Oops.
Yeah, and we got arrested.
It happens.
It was really bad. 27 hours. And the worst part about being in jail was when you have to shit, the toilets are so bad that you don't want to shit. That was the worst part of it.
Any other information I should...
No. But I'm telling you, that caused me to save receipts and pay my taxes because I never want to go back to a place where I can't. Do you imagine doing an 8-year bid and not shitting? How awful that would be.
That's a hell of a backup. Especially on the day you get out.
And by the way, the balls to read a poem in front of a football team. I think that was the point. That was ballsy to be on a team and read. I wouldn't read a poem in front of you guys.
I want to hear this poem now. Is it online or something?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come back and I'll do it for you.
That'd be cool,
Will that work?
Yeah.
It's called The Turk, and it chronicles my experiences from my aspirations to be a pro football player to getting cut, and all the guys that the Turk will come for. He'll come for those no cuts. He'll come for the vets. He'll even cut coaches, pay them off, send them home. He'll cut and he'll hack a squad down to the bone, and it goes on like that, you know. It starts with my career, which began... career, you could call it, with the Denver Broncos. I got cut the second day because I pulled a hamstring and I couldn't even run the 40-yard dash for time, which is the first thing you do. The saving grace was that the Broncos in those days were training at my college, Colorado State University. I lived around the corner from where they trained, so when I got cut, I limped home around the corner. You know,
you didn't have to go too far.
I didn't have to go too far. But after you get cut 13 times from 13 teams, you got to find 12 because the Chiefs cut me twice.
You're gonna say
the thing that was good about it, though, it gave me a lot of scar tissue for this business. You know. You know, for being rejected for parts and turned down for one reason or another, you go for well, we're going to go another way, John.
Yeah.
You know, well, that's not going to work out. And you hear every form of rejection And after a while, it doesn't faze you anymore.
Yeah.
How did you not freak out when they said to you, like, we want to continue? I don't like the way Norman Lear did that. The good news, bad news, we got picked up. It's like, why would you say that as good news?
that's
you just
not
got to
good news
kind
for him.
Yeah, unless Norman was probably angry at that time. Maybe he was,
You want to really rub it in.
Turn the screws a little
Well,
bit.
I
I
hit
think
my
so.
buttons, but I'd been on hiatus, and I was relaxed, and I was fine with where I was in my life. And as God would have it, some months later, I got the role of Kunta Kinte in Roots, and I never looked back. So I'm glad I held on,
Right.
to what I thought was right at the time. I think the most gratifying thing about Good Times is a reaction I get from young men in particular, just about every ethnic stripe you can imagine. They come up to me and they'll say, I watched that show growing up. You're the father I never had. And I've had it from literally every race of human being imaginable. And that's a good feeling because you feel like, hey, I did something worthwhile,
I remember you scaring the crap out of me as I was growing up watching. It was just like, because you were always ready at the drop of a hat for your family
Right.
to beat the living shit out of somebody.
That's what
and
it
was
takes,
frightening, man. You're just like, oh, man, you put that face on and it would just be like, oh, shit, here goes James. He's pissed.
But that's what kids... That's what kids need today.
Right, they want
somebody to say,
Gonna
no,
have their
that's
back,
wrong.
yeah.
You go that route, I'm going to be all over you. And when I was coming up, that's the way it was. Even though my dad wasn't there initially, he and my mom split when I was younger. We got to know each other when I was a baby, and we got to know each other by the time I hit my teens and went out to junior college in California, and then a real son-father relationship started. But I modeled James Evans after John Amos Sr., because that's who he was. If you saw me on Good Times, you saw my father.
Oh, really?
That was it. Complete with the catchphrases. Like, I would use everything he would say. You ask my dad an obvious question, he'd just look at it and say, is an elephant heavy? Okay, I got that.
All right, yeah. I
Is
get it.
heaven happy? He'd say things like that. So I used all of that stuff. Like, have mercy. All the catchphrases that I brought to the show. That's why I was pissed off when the writers were trying to push into my mouth and down my throat attitudes and words that
That you
didn't
never
fit.
would. Yeah, you never would have said.
You play great characters where you're always very nice and always a very giving guy, but always one moment away from smashing somebody with a table. Like that's that great balance between just really be nice to this guy and he'll treat you very well. But if you go over the line, you're going to get a fucking beating immediately. And that, to me, that was what the character in...
keep that in mind.
Oh, yeah. I'm very rarely nervous to walk up to people, but I saw you outside the Comedy Cellar, and I wanted to talk to you, but it's like, you were talking to people. I'm like, what am I going to say? And then Joe, the guy you're acting with, actually knew my act a little bit.
Joe Whistler, yeah.
Joe Whistler, so we talked.
He loves you. He's a big fan.
Well, you were in the bar getting a drink or whatever. So we started talking for a while. And he goes, "Hey, could I take a photo with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And he goes, "Oh, if you want to meet John," I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I guess he just kind of saw me fucking lurking like a creep, like John Hinckley, just standing there. And he's like, he doesn't really like taking pictures. I'm like, "You think you would take one with me?" And he goes, "All right, I'll ask him." I kind of bugged him into asking, but have you gotten sick of it over the years? Like, there's so many people asking for so many years. It's just a little bit
the
much.
attitude of the public has changed because you got people out there that'll take your picture and post it on eBay or sell it. I mean, they're
Right.
And I don't like that. I mean, if you're going to do that, send me a piece.
Yeah, right.
I mean, take the picture. You're going to sell it, but break Kunta off a little piece anyway, right? And then, but when people intrude on you when you're trying to have like with your children, or say it's Mother's Day, or maybe you just had a root canal, maybe you just don't feel like being bothered, and when they get so intrusive that you want to break something over their head, I said, no, it's, I better go home and stay by myself until this attitude goes away.
And everyone has cameras now. It's not like the
There
old
is no
days
privacy
there.
no more.
Everybody has a camera at any given moment to say, can I take a picture? So you would you would be constantly taking pictures.
But he wasn't rude to people. Like people would walk by and he would just go, "I don't do pictures," but he would shake their hand and talk to them. There's a couple of guys that stood there for 5 minutes just chatting.
Yeah.
It didn't feel rude or dismissive. It just like at least I carry a camera like a true creep, and I don't ask people to with a cell phone. That's annoying. At least I'm ready to take a real photo.
You have a camera. You got some pictures here that need signing.
one photo.
Of course,
Just a
why
Now he
not?
needs a picture signed.
I love to have my photo signed by John
It's
Amos.
Jimmy, though.
It's a photo of us
Jimmy's
together.
house is a museum.
Yeah, it really
It's
is.
amazing.
Yeah, it really is a soulless place.
He has everything.
There's no true memories. It's just photos of me with people, and it's empty of all good feelings.
You know what it is? There's no future. There's just the past in your place. It's everyone he's seen and been with and things he's done, but no future.
Well, that's very, very symbolic of, let's just say, my career. Let's be honest. We're not exactly on a rocket ship here, guys.
You're doing all right, buddy. You got a lot of people that love this stuff, and you know that.
Let's give the play a final
give the
plug.
play a plug, man.
Yeah.
Felony Friday.
Felony Friday. It was, of course, starring John Amos, and it's tonight at 7:30, and Thursday at 9:30, and it's an amazing location.
That's down at 115 McDougal Street.
Between
in the
Cafe
city.
Wa
Yep.
and the Comedy Cellar. It's West 3rd and McDougal, basically. And it's an amazing place for a play. Every seat is good. It's not like you're going to get lost in there. And the number is 212-475-1449. And I'm really, really bothered I have to fly today because I want to see this very much.
Oh, man.
So I hope you guys get more
Well,
or
if
extended.
it's extended, we'll see you.
I would love to.
I hope you can make it because you're going to love it.
Yeah, no, I wanted to go the other night, but I couldn't. I didn't want to get there and see like the last 15 minutes and fucking bumble into the door as something really important. You know, and the killer is that I fucking walk in and I wave at John, hoping he sees me.
You idiot. I love it.
Exactly.
Jimmy's the
Just
best.
a fucking pariah. John, thank you.
John,
I mean, I'm so
hey, guys,
happy.
thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Huge fan over the years.